This is an edited recording of a special SRITC Café broadcast live from the Cinema and Performance Space at number 30, which is a community-owned building at the heart of Huntly's historic town square. The café was presented as part of a series of events at the European Rural Parliament, which took place between the 21st and 24th of October 2025 in Inverurie in rural Aberdeenshire. During the cafe, Jenny Milne facilitated presentations and a Q&A session featuring representatives from the Huntly Development Trust, Bampshire Partnership, Mearns and Coastal Healthy Living Network, and the event sponsor, Northlink Ferries. Due to a small technical issue, we were unable to record Jenny's opening presentation and the one that followed from Jane Mitchell from the Mearns and Coastal Healthy Living Network. A full set of slides from the cafe can be downloaded in the comments below. While we made as much effort as possible to ensure the sound quality in the cinema was acceptable to those watching online, there are moments where you may find it hard to hear what the speakers are saying, so if needed, please turn up your volume.
Yourself, please.
Yes, right. So just
Quite
what
loud.
slide we've got up. Yeah. So my name's Duncan Leese, and I head charity based at Boyndy, and hopefully you can see a little map with a pink arrow on it as to where that is. It's
Anyway, it's here, it's
okay.
there, and to give you reference, we're here.
So we're right up on the northeast coast. I'll just tell you a little bit about how our community is comprised. It's predominantly a series of small towns and villages. The main industry being fishing and farming, very traditional kind of area and quite rurally isolated. It's beautiful, it's picturesque, we get holiday makers, we're delighted to have them. However, that masks the fact that it does have, unfortunately, a high score on many poverty and health indices that we wouldn't want to be the top of, but unfortunately we are. So we're the most deprived area of Aberdeenshire. I'm not sure that I really like that title, but it gives you an idea that although it's beautiful and although it's a terrific place to live, it has got a lot of challenges around poverty and isolation. And those two things go hand in hand. Isolation and poverty often are hand in hand. So let's, if we can move to the,
Be a paper.
if we can move to the next slide. It is two separate organisations, and that's historic. There's no real good logical reason for that. It's just two organisations that started separately that we brought together in one location 20 odd years ago. So I'll cover very briefly what they do. Boyndy Trust is the one that owns the Visitor Centre building that you saw a little picture of on the previous slide. So that's quite a large building that's open to the general public with a restaurant, gift shops, gardens, and it provides skills development training for people who are unemployed and typically who have a special need of some kind too, which means a disability, learning difficulty, mental health issues, all of those things. So that's what that charity does. And it's an extremely busy place. As I said, open to the public. It gets lots and lots of visitors, lots of people spending money. That's part of our core income as an organisation. So we get a title called social enterprise, which means very little to me, but hopefully might mean something to you. And that's the way we run, not on grant funding, but on generated income. So as well as that straightforward work that we do at our base at Boyndy, we also deliver a number of other services from the building, but out in the community. And all of those services come under the other organisation, Bampshire Partnership. And you can see that the top of my list in the biggest letters is rural transport. We don't really consider ourselves primarily as a transport organisation. We have lots of other things that we do. However, the reason that's at the top of the list is whether it's the things delivered by the sister charity Boyndy Trust or whether it's the things I'm going to describe at the moment. None of them work without transport. None of them, because people need to get to them. And you can't do that by normal commercial means. So therefore, we have to provide transport. So much as you've heard before, we provide a network of connection between people who need services and the services we provide, and the services that other people provide too, like Jill, who you're going to hear next. We have a fleet of buses. We have paid drivers. We don't work with volunteers. Our drivers and our passenger assistants are all paid staff, and we run shopping services as well. We have at the moment about 500 people a week who regularly use our services, and our buses on average do routes that are about 100 miles round trip, because we live a long way away from anywhere. And I'll come to that again in a second. So we have that core service, which is taking people shopping, exactly what the colleague here described to you earlier, but perhaps in a slightly different scale, because we do it more with buses rather than individual cars. No right or wrong, just different ways of doing it. Access to services, as I've said, is a big issue, and it's with our services, it's other services such as health appointments and so on. You'll hear more about that from Jill in a moment. We are trying very hard, working with Jill, to cut down the miles that people have to do to access things like health services. So if we can access them more locally rather than long distances away, we haven't hopefully got to do the big long trips to the hospitals that you're doing. We definitely reduce rural isolation, and that has huge benefits to mental health and well-being, which we can cover more in the questions perhaps. The other thing we do, which is newer, is crisis support. And because of what I described to you about the problems there are in our area, we have a lot and an increasing number of young families, individuals in crisis, formally declared they are in crisis. They don't have any food, they don't have enough money, they don't have access to proper clothing, all kinds of things. We wish we didn't have that, but we do. So we are now the first response organisation to people in crisis. And that means us working with not just services we provide directly to people to help them in their crisis, but linking them with the huge range of other charities and state-provided services that can help somebody in that situation. And so we will coordinate and we will help them access all of the things that might be useful to them. And that might just be by helping them book an appointment online with somebody, but very likely it will be physically transporting them to a meeting or a place where they need to go, as well as distributing food. So collectively, the organisation is one of the major employers in the area. I believe I have something like 52 paid staff. So we are a major employer in the area. We also are an employer that has very good terms and working conditions. We use flexible working arrangements and so on. We can cover that more in the questions if you want. We do put money into the local economy via our visitor centre and tourists coming to the area and so on. But the big letters you'll see I've reserved for mental and physical health and well-being. And that is what we're all about. If you wanted me to tell you what our charity does, it does that. So not principally a transport provider, mental health, physical health and well-being, but we need the transport to achieve that. And the other thing we're addressing more and more is something called rural premium. Again, we can cover that more in the questions if you wish. But quite simply, that is how much more it costs to live in a small rural isolated area compared to somewhere where you're right next to a big supermarket and right next to all the things you need. And the difference in those costs are huge. And that's one of the things we're really concentrating on with Jill to help address. So hopefully we make life happier and just better. And that's a strapline that comes from comments we get from our customers. You go.
Thank you very much, Duncan, and thank you for letting me dash backwards and forwards to try and sort out the IT. They've now got the slides online through another device, so we're doing well, so they now can see everything. I'm now gonna pass to Jill, who I've got slides behind here, so she can tag on to what Duncan was saying, and Jill's going to shout as loudly as me. Go on.
Yeah, I'm not used to shouting unless it's my children. You can't hear me shout out. I felt I was on the spotlight, so I am getting a light in my face. Okay, thanks to Duncan for outlining the north of Aberdeenshire is where I work. So I'm an advanced public health coordinator. I'm part of an Aberdeenshire-wide team, but my particular area is up in the north of Aberdeenshire. And unlike the south, we are well documented as being an area in deprivation, and deprivation in many ways, but transport being one of these. So today I'm talking about when I do say public health, it's health improvement that my field of work is in, and reducing inequalities that prevent people from living healthy and well. So test to change is one of the things that I'm involved in at the moment. The whole point of this particular test to change is obviously to improve access to care. It's to improve access to care at our hospital, where there was the picture of the hospital, and we also see a map. So that is the map of the area that we cover as part of that test change. So what we're doing as part of the test change is that over a 6-month period, we started back in September this year, we're testing a new approach at one of our hospitals. The hospital obviously delivers a lot of services within it, and these services are mostly face-to-face appointments. So because of the need for the patient, they need to come in face-to-face and see that healthcare professional. We are currently working with 3 departments within the hospital, and the whole point of it is to work with these departments to make it easier for the patients that they need to see face to face get transferred. If they are struggling to get transferred to that appointment, this test of change is providing that support, or hopefully is able to provide that support. And it's a joint project, obviously by NHS, the National Health Service, of Grampian, and obviously Duncan and his organisation. I could not do my job unless I work with what's available within my communities. I come with no money. I have got to use the assets and other things within the community to resolve these inequalities that people are experiencing. And within our NHS system, we're getting less and less money to do pieces of work like this because we've constantly got to treat people. Perhaps if we had less treatment to do, then perhaps we would have more money to invest in things like this. And I suppose a big push of my role is about we prevent things from happening in the first place. We don't want to treat so many people. It's costing us far too much money. So why did we do this test of change? Obviously, a few points there, which obviously comes out quite clearly from the literature papers that we have for Scotland as a whole. So general points that I assume you would know, kind of highlighted what it's like, transport reasons for doing this test change. But also part of my role is actually going out and speaking to the general public to actually get their lived experience of what transport is like to get them to and from appointments. So we went out, spoke to 130 odd public members. A third of them says that where they lived impacts on the transport options available to them. And in the past, some individuals had missed appointments because they couldn't get to them because transport was not available. And some of the reasons was due to, we do have buses in the areas, but they are decreasing. There are sometimes bus times didn't suit people. Some people had to have multiple journeys. They were on several buses to get to one destination. Also things like transport not turning up. do have a habit that buses just don't turn up for some reason. And also being reliable. And also many patients that are coming into our hospital need that extra assistance. They may come in wheelchairs, and our buses don't always have the space for this. So how on earth are people supposed to get to their appointments? Hence our test of change. So what are we doing? Just going back to the next slide, please, Jenny. So this is what we're doing. We're, as I say, involved in 3 departments at the hospital. There are radiography, speech and language therapy, and physiotherapies. The staff within this department are well up for this test of change. They see the need for it because they are actually seeing patients not turn up for their appointments. So when somebody presents to them, they will ask them if they need help with transport. That could be one way to the hospital or both ways to the hospital. And they then signpost them to Boyndy. Boyndy then coordinates that transport on behalf of that individual. Now, ideally, in the ideal world, we would actually like not to do the signposting bit. We would like our staff just to be able to phone Boyndy and pass on the patient's details to Boyndy and arrange the transfer. But we are finding that very difficult as part of this test change because as a National Health Service, information governance is a challenge for us. And to enable us to pass details on, just even a name and a phone call, mobile number, is proven very difficult and requires data protection impact assessments. And within our organisation, these can take 2 years to go through. 2 years! We're only doing the test change for 6 months. So already as part of this test to change, we're experiencing issues. So both organisations just want to help the person get to their appointment, but we're presented with these barriers that's actually putting the patient at a disadvantage. But we're working through these, and obviously by doing pieces of work, these things get brought to our attention for us then to pick up and obviously escalate at different levels within the organisation. Am I still on time?
You're all right, you've got a couple of minutes, just a couple of minutes, the coffee's blooming.
So the test of change, so it really shows that partners can obviously work together. And that's what I says. I couldn't do my job without partners and without the resources on the ground. We're working together to solve problems, to solve the challenges, and to help people within the communities. We know they need the help. So rather than design that top level system, we're working at a community level and doing it from the community up. And it's often much better doing it that way. So since we started in September, referral conversations are happening with our leads within their departments. They're signposting people to Boyndy. Boyndy have seen 7 responses of trying to transport to 7 individuals. We are being careful about who we share this information with. It is those that we know struggle to get transport. It's not open universally to all. It is those that need transport. But so far, as part of this test to change, 7 individuals have been helped to get to and from their appointment. And hopefully as we continue on with our test to change, we'll obviously increase that numbers significantly. But couldn't have done it without working with what's already within our communities.
Thank you, Jill. I think what they're doing here is fantastic. It's probably not a model known to many people out of the UK. And as you can tell, health is such a big piece of the picture for us at Scotland. We actually have a focus group where we bring experts together to talk about health, because trying to facilitate those partners coming together, as Jill pointed out, the cost of medication for our healthcare is way more than actually organising transport. And I will let my right honourable friend from Ireland speak to you about that later on, about the whole cost of healthcare and transport. But it's such an important piece, which is why we're talking about it today. Those in person here in the room, I'm sure you've got questions, so we've got about another 10 minutes before I come to you for questions. Those online, put the questions in the chat box, and delightful Steve Cassidy sitting in the room with me will relay them for you. So we're now going to go slightly out of seating order. Okay, I'm going actually to Donald, who is hosting us. So thank you very much, Donald, today. So Donald, would you like to provide an intro, and bear in mind the online camera is sitting right to your left, so yeah, very simple.
Yeah, woken me up by making me go next. That's good. Yeah, welcome everybody here to Huntly, welcome to those online. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Jenny for choosing to bring the group to Huntly today. I'm Donald Boyd. I work with an organisation called Huntly Development Trust, and the focus of this presentation, like all this panel, is about transport. So also mentioning our Huntly Travel Hub. You heard a wee bit about that along the road already for the bike.
This is my favourite diagram. I'm sorry, I love this.
That's,
Yeah,
can you just step back?
I want you to talk about that one.
No, just very briefly. I think what's really important to come up a couple of times is the idea of working partnership.
Yeah.
And you can see the logos of all the people who are supporting us. One of them's in the room, John from Nestams is here today. But that whole idea we can't do it alone, working together is implicit in that slide.
Which links lovely to this.
Thank you, thank you. That goes back a long way. You see our mission statement at the top starts with the word working with others. And we use fancy words there, but actually we're just trying to make our community a better place to live, work and visit, both now and for those coming after us. We see ourselves as stewards of what's here. We are a development trust. Again, that might be not a concept that's familiar to all. Basically, it's not a legal form. It basically is, we are a community-owned company, we're a member-owned company. Anyone here can become a member of Huntly Development Trust for the grand sum of £1, and that gives you the right to be a member. You can vote, you can try to become a director, etc., etc. And basically, the characteristics of a development trust are you're locally focused, you're trying to get away from being grant reliant, you're trying to earn your own corn. And you are working across a wide range of things. You're not solely, in our case, the transport organisation, or housing organisation, or sports organisation, but tackling the whole needs and opportunities of the community. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a healthy, happy Huntly district. But at the same time, Jenny, sorry, could you just go back one slide? Almost back one.
Bottom.
Oh, button.
There we go.
But at the same time, you've heard from lots of others, we've got to do it in a way that we're commercially viable. We've got to be here. If we want to do all the good things our community says they want to see happen, we've got to be here to do that. So it's that balancing of good things with that's what we do. We established ourselves back in 2009, and gradually over the years we've been doing things more and more of greater size and complexity. We're talking about Travel Hub today. Greenmeyers, Jenny mentioned very briefly. It's a former hill farm that we bought in 2014. We'll come back to the reason for that. We're trying to make that into a vibrant community asset which offers opportunity. They said that's a key word for us as a development trust. It's opportunity. We've got that strange dichotomy that also Duncan referred to, is that from the outside, Huntly looks like a glorious, beautiful place, certainly on a day like this, when the sun is shining, the buildings are looking great, and the countryside looks great. But that veneer, that cover, is hiding a part of Aberdeenshire with real social and economic problems that just go unnoticed if you don't know that's there. We've got the lowest household, average household income in Aberdeenshire by some way. So what we're trying to do is work with others in the community who are tackling the more immediate needs. And what we're trying to do is put the infrastructure in there to create the opportunities that can then give rise to more longer term change. So Greenmeyers is one of those things. It's now being turned into an outdoor centre, family friendly, introductory level outdoor centre to give young people and others the skills to go out and make their way in the big wide world. Town centre regeneration, you're sitting in a tangible example of what we've done. We took a former department store that closed in 2018, stood vacant. It's about 1,500 square metres, but 17,000 square feet of space, and we've turned it into a multi-use community venue. We're sitting in the cinema, which also has live theatre happening tonight. It's got a cafe, it's got the gallery exhibition space. Importantly, we're also looking to host others in the building, and exclusive reveal that we've signed a lease with our banking hub, the national banking hub chain, coming to this building as of about a month's time. And again, that's to replace, I'll allow the replacement of services that disappeared from our town over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, there were 4 full-time banks in town. Today there are none, but we've got this banking hub facility coming to town, which will give a day a week for the main banks represented in the area. So on a Monday it'll be the Royal Bank, Tuesday it'll be whatever it is, Wednesday. So again, that provides an access, prevents the need to travel, and creates additional service. You can go to the next 1 second, because the underpinning one of all that is the one on the bottom right for you, which is hidden by Magnus's fine head here. That is energy. Our area is host to a number of renewable energy developments, agreed for that wind turbines. And what we're trying to do, we've tried to capture some of the benefit of that by partnering with commercial developers and establishing our own community turbine up at Green Miners, and that generates a reasonably significant amount of unrestricted income, money that we can choose to do as we choose as the development trust, and that goes both to pay directly for some things, but also as grant leverage. So if we put in £1, we'll have grant funder put in £1 too, or £10, or £100, or in the case of this building, about £250,000 for every pound that we put in. Not quite as many as that, but that's something. This is an example combining both the travel, part of our travel hub, our Co-Wheels car franchise that I mentioned along the road for biking, with 2 vehicles that we hire from Co-Wheels, and then they do all the behind the scenes stuff, so we don't get called on Christmas Day saying there's a problem. But the vehicles are there for people in the community to rent when they want them, saves them probably on average about £3,000 a year compared to owning their own vehicle. This is Green Miners. This is the place where we're doing the introductory family-friendly outdoors learning and lots of other stuff. And the turbine on the far right of the screen, that's our own one. Next one, Jamie, please. And this is more about the travel hub itself. We're into e-bikes from the travel hub, which is next door. It is temporarily occupied by the banking hub, who are moving in here next month. So they'll vacate that, and we'll get back in there. Paula will have fine. We have a permanent guest somewhere to work. That's the building there. There's the minibus, which some of you travelled in this morning. Again, big shout out to our volunteers like Alan. Fabulous driving bus was. There's a team of about 6 or 8 of them, I think, at the moment. Maybe not even as many as that, and they make sure that nobody goes without the need for it. It's above and beyond. And then we also make that available for people to hire when they want it for their own use. Interestingly, just now we're also working with various people, notably with an Aberdeenshire Council, to make Huntly a more attractive place to walk and cycle. So that is looking at the infrastructure in the town, what we do to make that happen. And again, we're working with the biking and the skills and the confidence.
That's great. I let Donald go on a bit longer because I think it's very important to understand what we need in rural Scotland, because the reason these services are being provided is because we don't actually have buses that are scheduled to take us places. So there is a gentleman online at the moment called Alistair Dalton, who works for a newspaper in Scotland, who wants to write something about rural buses, because rural buses has been in the media a lot. These are solutions that are on the ground in Scotland and the UK because we do not have the buses. And it's a very sad picture. But it's a great picture, but it's a sad picture at the same time. I've left the best to last. Sorry, there's another one. Magnus is here from Northlink Ferries, and I have to say a big thank you to Northlink Ferries, because they are supporting financially this trip today. So it's a very big thank you to Magnus. He also gets a short straw as well, because his colleagues are away on holiday as well. Because you heard they're on fantastic holidays, so everybody's away with their kids. So we couldn't take you, whether you're online or in person, to the Northland Ferries today, but we have at lunchtime the opportunity to try some virtual reality headsets and different things to actually get the experience. But I won't steal the thunder. You have 4 slides, I think it is, Magnus, so I will let you go for it.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So I'm Michael Sexton, I'm the marketing manager for Norfolk Ferries. So it's actually Circle Norfolk Ferries. We've provided the scheduled line passenger and freight service between the Scottish mainland and the Orkney and the Shetland Islands on behalf of Transport Scotland since 2012. Thank you. We've got a route map up there.
We're about roughly here.
So yeah, we've got our triangle there of routes there. So basically, we sail every evening from Aberdeen to Lerwick, and one ferry will go directly there. We also sail from Lerwick to Aberdeen, also every evening. There's 2 ferries that operate. One goes directly there, one stops by Kirkwall in the Northern Islands there, you can see, and then continues on. It's a service that leaves at tea time and it arrives the following morning. So it's a bit of an adventure in itself, and it's actually the longest internal ferry route in the UK. It's 216 miles. Yes, obviously because it's an overnight service, people will buy cabins, or there's other means. There's more there's accommodation for every budget on board. We also have our service that runs from Scrabster in far north of Scotland to Stromness, and that runs up to 6 times daily. Yes, we over in 1 year we carry about 400,000 passengers. The Stromness Scrabster route is about 200,000 passengers, and we like to think that we're actually, we view ourselves very much as a member of the local community. And sure enough, our offices are based in Orkney and in Aberdeen, and I myself am based in Orkney. Amy, who's in our audience here, she's based in Aberdeen. We've got offices in Scrabster and in Caithness, and also an office in Lerwick. So we're very much part of the Northern Isles community, and we serve key sectors within those economies. Orkney and Shetland, they're very beautiful places. Orkney is well known for its archaeology. There's more archaeology in Orkney per square mile than anywhere else in Scotland. The Shetland Islands are very wild, rugged. Maybe you've seen the TV program.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we've got a fan. So they're definitely worth visiting. So obviously tourism is a big sector for us. But we've also got there's both Orkney and Shetland, main economies there are agriculture and aquaculture too, and we serve those markets. And also islanders, it's not just taking visitors to these places, it's also about serving the needs of islanders. And that's sometimes a fine balance to make sure that everyone's happy with what with the service that's given. Islanders get a small discount when they travel, and islanders that are islanders that are in full-time education also get a discount. There's NCS vouchers for people that are within the National Concession Scheme that get the free bus passes in Scotland. They also get 4 ferry trips a year, so that they can actually access the whole stop. So there's that. Oh, we've got nice pictures of our ships. Sorry, I'm not paying attention to that. It's on our screen. We've got MV Handivo up there. That's the one that serves the far north of Scotland, and it passes the Old Man of Point, which is a landmark. It's a sea stat. It's very impressive to see. And our two ferries are our sister ships, the Yatland and the Rossie, and they have 117 cabins on board, each, and they sail, as I say, from Aberdeen to the Northern Islands. We've also got our freight service that is run by MV Halsey and MV Hellier. The freight service runs between Aberdeen, Orkney and Shetland. And we carry 43,000 freight trailers per year. Someone described to me once how ferries are like arteries in the body, that they carry vital lifeblood, and that's very much true with the freight ships. We have they're transporting goods, and they're transporting building materials, they're transporting letters and parcels, and supermarket goods. And meanwhile, off the island we're transporting livestock and fish and shellfish, amongst many other things. Our onboard service, we're very proud of what of our onboard facilities. We have locally sourced food and drink. 84% of everything that we sell on board is sourced within 50 miles of our operating ports. We have food and drink. We have I'll take you on a quick tour. We have our food and drink in our feast restaurant there. We have the Magnus Lounge. We have facilities if you have a dog, or in Shetland, they're great places to take dogs. Lots of lovely, beautiful beaches surrounding. We have our cabins there, our ensuite cabins. Sleeping pods are an option for budget travellers, and actually there's a bit of innovation there. I'll talk about innovation in a minute. But we'll be introducing soon lie flat sleeping pods, which will mean that they're a communal sleeping area and people will be able to lie flat.
Which means you get really drunk and fall asleep so that you actually can manage the crossing. I'll do that.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned the bad weather yet. You'll notice there's not a single wave in it. But yes, as I say, we have our bars there. There are changing places, accessible facilities. We're very proud. We were the first ferry company in the UK to have a changing place facility on board our ships, and we have our shops also. We have
How long time it takes you to go from Aberdeen to Shetland?
14 hours.
14 hours.
Yes, sorry. I think I went off on a tangent. But yes, you would set off around about 5 o'clock at night. For the indirect route, you'd set off at 5 o'clock at night. You'd arrive from Aberdeen. You'd arrive in Orkney at about 11 o'clock at night, and then the next morning you'd arrive in at 7 o'clock in the Shetland Islands.
Perfect.
And then you can go and see all the locations that the Shetland TV series was filmed at.
I'm going to give you 2 minutes because there's a few questions coming in already, if that's all right.
Okay. Oh. So yes, innovation. We are bringing in shoreside power. We've already brought it in for the Handivo, and that means that basically when the ship is docked, it will hook into a giant plug, and basically instead of running its diesel engines to generate power, it will receive power from the grid. In Orkney, 100% of electricity in Orkney is actually produced renewably. We have lots and lots of wind farms there, and a lot of wind.
Because there's a lot of wind, and with a lot of wind comes a lot of waves.
Yes, indeed. but we won't talk about that. Yeah, by plugging in, essentially, well, the Handle so far, it's saved over 750 tons of carbon dioxide from being released into the environment every year, which is the equivalent of 290 diesel cars driving 10,000 miles a year, or 82 homes electricity use for 1 year. We're also bringing those the shoreside power into Aberdeen and also into Lerwick very soon too. We're constantly reviewing our onboard facilities. We use our VR as a recruitment tool because we have lots of jobs. We have shoreside jobs and onshore jobs available too. Sorry, shoreside jobs and ship jobs available too. We also use, actually this is an interesting one, just came in with the past sort of month or so ago, we have something called Sea Level, which is a VR headset you wear if you're feeling seasick.
I'll use that.
And essentially it puts you in a desert island. Hopefully not have a shepherd's son. But it puts you in a really tranquil spot. And so far it's been great. You know, the autumnal storms that we've had. I've heard of children falling asleep during this thing. I've heard people being completely cured of seasickness. So
I could have borrowed it when I went to Denmark. I could have told you if it worked or not.
well, yes. We'll just ask next time.
Right, I think that's right here, isn't it, Magnus?
That is.
I'm gonna ask Alex, you can stop sharing, I'll stop sharing. I was gonna have a conversation with everybody here, but I think it's easier just to go straight to the questions. And I know my usual suspects have been getting communication, that's why I've been rude, been losing my phone, because I'm still able to communicate with the WhatsApp world of these online. And the good guys of John Carr, Bonnie, and even our Canadian is asking some questions. So I'm gonna go to Steve, who's in the room. I'm gonna go to stop sharing these, and we can maybe see some photos of everybody online. Steve, do you want to share some of the questions? And if they're targeted to anybody in particular, can you let me know?
Yeah, I don't think these are particularly, but I think it'll be kind of obvious about sort of general genre. There's been a couple of questions about with remote communities struggling with volunteers. You know, it's obviously a key resource, a lifeblood. And what is there anything that you're doing to maintain long-term resilience and capacity building? You know, particularly for community-based organisations. And there's a little bit of an excellent. I haven't heard it. There's an urban halo effect. Newcomers coming into rural areas and carrying on with their very urban lifestyle, driving to a supermarket, etc., not really interacting with the local community. If you want to get them involved, is there any way of being able to do that and manage that? So volunteers, any initiatives that have worked, particularly thinking about newcomers.
And I'm going to say to online people, we can now see you, and you're not online, you're not got your cameras on, but thank you, Bonnie, for doing that, and Alex. And so you can put your cameras on and we can now see you, it'd be great. So who wants to start? Volunteers, Jane.
But if you can speak up, the microphone hasn't been great today, so.
Right. I'd like to say I always shout at my children as well, so I will try and speak louder. Yeah, as I said, we are heavily relying on volunteers. We have a really good volunteer retention. Long may that continue. Our longest volunteer has been with us since the organisation started in 2002, and he has actually just stepped back from driving, and he is he's 89. And was still driving for us safely. It's still driving for us. It's a massive challenge. It's getting more and more difficult. As I say, when the organisation started 20 plus years ago, I think it was a different picture for people retiring. You know, still retiring. You know, certainly women when they were 60. People not perhaps having to do grandchildren duties, childcare duties that they're having to do now. Obviously, people are now having to work until they're 66, 67, looking at that as well. So it's a real challenge, and I haven't heard that. Oh, urban halo.
I know,
Yeah.
they're just asking in the chat, I did message Steve, can you spin the camera around, because they can't see.
That's really bad.
Sorry.
I thought.
All the
you
people,
wanted to-
oh, wait, no, they're not there. Wait,
It's okay.
Fancy button that you're sure.
Look it up.
Okay, now wait, say, hey, go back.
So yeah, I think we do well with our volunteers because we are really flexible with how people can volunteer for us. And even so, for the driving, our volunteers are paid their mileage, obviously, and that is from wherever they live to wherever they're going and back again. And because of the area that we cover, you could have a driver in Mearns, which is a teeny tiny village right in the south of the area. They're perhaps not picking somebody up in Portlethen, so they're actually already having to drive 25 miles before they pick somebody up to then take them into hospital. But all that mileage is covered, because we work so hard to get grant funding to help us cover the costs of the volunteers' mileage. But people can do as much or as little as they want for us. We have it as a email group that they're all blind copied into. So when somebody phones up and says they need transport, we email everybody saying, is anybody free to take a lady from Lawrence Kirk to ARI, such and such date? She will need a wheelchair at the hospital. The appointment will take 4 hours. We try and give them as much information. If they can't do it, they just ignore it. If they can, they get in touch, but we have no expectation that volunteers will do X amount of hours a week or X amount of hours a month. And we know that life gets in the road and people have to step back a bit. So I think that flexibility, is key for helping volunteers feel like it's fits around their life.
I'm going to jump in. John Carr is there. You can see John. Okay, he's nibbling his fingers. He's not nervous because he's very confident. Is our John Carr. You can wave, John, but I'm not going to unmute you. But from what I can gather, and Steve will correct me if I'm wrong. But John's question is about how do you bring newcomers and incomers that are coming to new villages. So I don't know if Donald wants to answer that. How do you bring in new people that have moved into an area into the community? I mean, even Donald, you might want to go for that. It's a good question, John. Thank you.
I would say we've almost got the opposite issue or effect here. I think it's the people who choose to move to the area who are more likely to want to get involved, to carry things on, maybe start new things that they maybe experienced where they were or maybe identify are lacking in the area. I think our main issue would probably be encouraging local people who already live where they are, who are already really busy doing what they are, who's, we're fully stretched, be it bringing up children, trying to make ends meet, looking after elderly relatives. I think when people come to the area, they're coming with maybe more of a blank canvas and they've got the more time and space to offer. So I think that would be our reflection of that. So I'm not saying it's not an issue, but I would say it's not an issue that I recognise.
In your head there, you agreeing. Duncan, sorry, brain injury moment. Duncan.
Yes, I don't recognise the, is it urban halo?
Yes,
I don't recognise
just carrying on an urban lifestyle and maybe not integrating.
Yes, I don't recognise that happening in our area. However, there is something slightly different that I would like to say. So having run charities as a chief executive for more than 30 years, I think I do need to make it very, very clear that charities cannot work solely on volunteers. They have to have paid staff. So I couldn't possibly deliver the level of services that we provide all with volunteers. It's completely ludicrous to think you can do that. And governments and so on need to realise that you need to fund the third sector, as it's called, charities and volunteer groups, because the work we do will save more than that funding in what the public sector has to deliver. Jill explained that very clearly. By funding some transport for us, we can get people preventative treatment that saves a fortune for the National Health Service. So we have to get away from thinking that everything a charity does is done by volunteers. That's not in any way decrying what these super volunteers do, but to think they can deliver everything.
Could you imagine operating a ferry on volunteer?
Well,
like
there you
this?
go. No, yes.
And it's a lifeline service as well. We have this phrase, lifeline service. Well, lifeline service for a ferry, but what about lifeline services on road transport as well? I know that Swen's got a question, but let's go to the room here. You can turn the camera around now. Mr. Technology here. Steve, by the way. Anybody got a question in the audience here that they want to ask? And I can't believe there's not going to be anybody sort of picking you, right? Do you want to introduce yourself and say where you are loudly?
Yeah, so I've got a loud voice. I'm Laura Corkery. I'm from Devon in England. So I'm Chief Executive of Rural Community Council in Devon. And it's been fantastic to hear about the work you're doing here. We're trying to do similar things in Devon. But my question is, it's about your volunteers' age range. Because we really struggle to get a lot of our volunteers are retired people and they're amazing. But we're really trying to involve working age and younger people. So I just wondered what your profile of volunteers is.
Can I throw that back? So there's a few young people in the audience here.
Yeah.
What would the young people who are very listening? Well, found you. And what would you do? What would make you get involved in working with a local rural transport solution?
I do a lot of volunteering myself, which is quite different compared to youth. Time. That's what I find the issue is I don't have time to do what I want to do.
And is that time juggling with studies, jobs, and just general social life?
That's what I want to do. I don't do it alongside.
And that's not about accessing transport to be able to do this. It's just literally, I don't mean it in a small way, the availability of time between the time you get up in the morning and the time you get to bed. Transport isn't limiting you in your options.
Not for me.
Not for you. That's good.
Days before I can drive.
So there's the key. Before you could drive. Panel, any thoughts on young people?
Well, I have one comment, which is the bad news is I am what the government classifies as a senior citizen, so I suppose I'm old. You don't get any less busy as you get older, I'm afraid.
That's good to hear.
Any other, right?
Just as you were saying,
Introduce
oh sorry, my name's Daniel O'Neill, I represent Rural Action NI, but I also work in the Republic of Ireland in rural transport. And you were talking about charities having paid staff. We also have a conversation among ourselves that the government departments in that see charitable sector, they don't pay the same wages as they should pay if you're in the public sector. Or if you're in the private sector, the money would be a lot higher. You wouldn't be expected to work from you go to bed, you know what I mean? They don't think that you go to bed at night because calls start coming in at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning till 12, 1 o'clock at night if things are going wrong. So, you know, I suppose the question is the governments can't do without us. We're essential services, but they want to run on a shoestring. Yet, you know, when we talked about them earlier on about getting volunteers to do the work for them, yet they're paying consultants, you know, where if they pay that consultant fees to the organisations, it'd make them more viable as well.
Can you tell which car he was in on the way here? It may have been my car. We had some very interesting conversations, didn't we, about the different models that exist between Ireland, there was Ireland, Northern Ireland, and myself, Scotland in the car. That's what car sharing brings to you though, isn't it? It was a dynamic. So for those online, we had the car sharing and we had the community buses. And that's the whole knowledge exchange. So any thoughts on that model? What they're talking, what they're doing, and how do we address this? Or do I go with somebody on the spot from Scottish Government? She's got a lovely nod for that.
Well, I think, I mean, what can I do but agree with everything you say? And what we have to be a lot better at, I think, in the charity sector, something that I devote quite a bit of my time to, is just going out and shouting and demonstrating about how much more useful it is to fund organisations like ours to do the work that I'm sure you do in your organisation. And you've got to try and do the sums for them as to why it's better use of public money to fund us to do the services than to fund Jill to give out huge amounts of prescription medication and so on.
Yeah.
And as a charity, as a group, charities, we have to really bang that drum as loud as we can.
Before I go to the last question online, and we will be drawing to a close because everybody online and in person needs to get lunch. I'm actually going to ask, we've got Magnus here. Anybody here live on an island? And you can put your hand up. I know some of you online. You can put, yeah, Sven's got his hand up. And real hands and artificial hands, as it were, with emojis. Or anybody, right? Okay, I 1, 2, 3. We've got Iceland. We've got Iceland here. He's from Iceland. Thanks, man. When I got Ireland as a part of that, right, okay, we've got Mia, who is standing here in the yellow t-shirt, who did a wonderful job, and has done a wonderful job over the last few days, because she ran the I'm tired, and she's really tired, the Youth Rural Parliament yesterday, so well done. So, but tell us where you live and what your challenges are, very briefly, in 1 minute.
9 Mile Long Island, population around 120, North Argyll. We do have 2 ferries, which is quite good. One runs twice a day, 2 round trips. The other one every hour.
And how long did it take you to get to Aberdeenshire?
About 7 hours.
7 hours. And I know Iceland was a bit more than 7 hours to get here. But
It's a bit more, yeah.
a little bit more, but it gives you a challenge. We have a lot of islands in Scotland and ferries are really crucial. And as SRITC, we are doing some work on ferries for the UK and water transport, but we're also wanting international examples. And recently I was in Denmark and I went to the island of Bornholm. And what I will say to Magnus is what I said to them. I will be putting them in touch with Magnus because none of their ferries promote local produce. Okay, they don't support local, that community piece, which anybody from Denmark here? No. I advocate for what Denmark do in rural transport because it's really good. They connect up buses with your ticket is here's a taxi, here's a bus, and we'll get you to the end and it's one seamless piece. So it doesn't matter if you're not near a bus stop. So I was really hopeful, and you'll see a blog come out about my experiences, really hopeful about going to Ireland. It was disastrous. There were no taxis available when I got there. There were no buses available. And this was a rural Ireland tourism conference that I was at. And the whole thing for transport was really sad. But it made me realise and appreciate we're very harsh on our ferry companies in the UK. It made me realise actually we're not that bad, and we actually communicate really well because Magnus uses loads of different channels to say the weather's not so great, so we've had to cancel, don't you?
Yes, yes.
Lots of different channels. Denmark, you go on their website, it just says cancelled. That's all you know. So you can't, yeah, I talk about the first one. Would somebody want to ask a question?
Well, it's not really a question, but it's more of a comment. So, my name is Claire Russell, and I'm the Chief Executive of the Civic Community Transport. So, we would be around about the second biggest community transport provider within Northern Ireland. And Duncan, what you had mentioned there was around the transport and the health piece. And obviously it is massive now at the minute because of the move to like regional centres and stuff. I'm sure it's the same within Scotland. And you were drawing the comparison with the cost of medicines. What we have seen across Northern Ireland has been the actual direct cost that the health service is spending on private taxi companies and private ambulance services. So we've actually put in a freedom of information request, and over the last 5 years, over the last 4 years, the Department for Health alone has spent £12 million on private taxis, and that's not even including the health trust, which is obviously a different, will be about take care of that as well. So my argument has always been really strongly around the value of the community and voluntary sector, that even in terms of direct transport delivery, we are able to do that at a far more cost effective way than what the internal transport teams within the likes of the Department for Health can do. So for me, and this is probably just more event than anything else, because I know that you will all probably agree with me, I find it so frustrating that because of the sector that we sit in, as in the community and voluntary sector, we're the first in line for cuts, because we're not a statutory service. And that's something that I think that, we in Northern Ireland is pushing on really, really strongly. And we're now got into that position where about like the door-to-door trucks that we would deliver within our area is around just shy of 40,000 per year. And I would say around about 30 to 40% of those is direct health trips. But we've had to secure external funding from the National Lottery and more recently the Mobility Foundation, which is UK wide as well. They put on those trips, but we don't get one single penny from the health service. And that's something because of the way I suppose the government silos are working. We're funded to do those local trips through the Department for Infrastructure. And there's not that integration across the government departments because they're all just fighting for their wee piece. And I think that's one of the key barriers, the progression of transport, like definitely in Northern Ireland anyway, as the government working in silos. And it's, I suppose it's just questioning, would you find that as well?
I'm gonna pause you because the online people are about to go, and that is an answering question for this afternoon after lunch. So Steve quickly spins me round, we're gonna, well, actually, no, don't spin me round, wave to those online, please, and say goodbye, and online can wave goodbye. But they're not going quite just yet, just to let those online know what we're doing for the rest of the day. We are gonna go for lunch, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna have an animated workshop, which is gonna be next door, and we're looking at social value and social return on investment. For those online, thank you very much for your patience with the technology today, really appreciate it. I hope you can still hear some of it. It has been recorded and there will be a little report going out of a synopsis. So if you couldn't hear all of it, it will be there, but hopefully you got a flavour. But I also want to thank these guys for giving up a lot of their time. Again, we're volunteers. I know that online also had a survey to fill out which needed to be done, so hopefully they've done that and they've not just deserted Alex so that I can't see them. But Alex, I'll let you hand over to the online and goodbye, good night, good morning, depending where you joined us from. Go and get your lunch or your dinner or your breakfast. For those